Hello, Internet, and welcome to our Farthest Frontier stream. I hope you guys are doing great today. I'm Zantai from the forums here to answer your burning questions and show off some of the version 0.9.2 stuff that we've coming up really soon. If you're interested in playtesting, it'll actually be starting up later today, as we announced. So I hope you guys are as excited as we are to get this into your hands. How are you guys doing today? Let me get that chat up. Any updates on the Grim Dawn expansion? Wrong stream! We're not doing Grim Dawn today. Look, even the shirt says so. To answer that question, though, I don't have any big news for you regarding that. Like, it's still pretty deep in development. We have a lot of stuff that's very raw and not ready to show you. But we'll keep you posted with our monthly updates. You saw the changelog, but didn't see anything listed about goats and chickens. The changelog has been updated in the last couple days. So if you haven't seen chickens and goats on there before, they are on there now. As you can actually see on my screen here. We do need more domestic animals. Yeah, I think having some more variety there is pretty fun. Just, you know, it's not necessarily that it's going to, like, fundamentally change the way you're building your town, but it just gives you more options. It's actually, with chickens in particular, it's a way to get eggs outside of the foragers. For goats, though, it's more like you can still get meat and hides and stuff, but goats tend to be a little bit more versatile than cattle, and you can kind of just put them anywhere and they'll do fine. So if you've got an area that's really barren, goats will probably do okay. Egg meta incoming. Nerf eggs. So, as you guys saw from the changelog, like, that is one of the major things we're adding. We're giving you new animals with chickens and goats and horses. We've got stable over here. And horses hanging out right here. No bacon, no pigs yet. As far as animals for 1.0, I think this is probably going to be it. I can't say what we're going to do after that. You never know. Maybe we might do sheep. Possible. Anything's possible. A live stream. Thanks for the game, everyone. So much fun. I'm glad you're liking it. We're getting there. We're getting to 1.0. This is going to be the year, which is crazy. Like, it just it seems like, to us in a way, like, oh, it was only like yesterday we started early access, right? But like, no, it's been a while. It's been a lot of things that have been added since we started with what, 0.7? We're up to 0.9.2. Anything is possible. Endgame Kraken boss confirmed. Yeah, we should definitely do a Kraken boss for Frontier. That's what people are expecting. The other half of this update, and arguably more than half, is, like, we've been calling this the combat update for a reason. Combat stuff has been overhauled, like, to put it lightly. The way recruitment works, the way soldier controls work, the options of soldiers you have has been dramatically expanded. And we've also added more options for what kind of raiders you'll be facing. So, you know, it's not just that you have new ways to defend yourself, you're also going to have to be defending yourself from new enemies. So let's actually take a look at soldiers here really quick. The main thing you might notice is that the banners on the outside of the barracks are actually different. That is based on the company that is inside of this building. And if you'd like, you can actually change it to something else. And if you do that, it updates for you on the outside of the building. You can rename the company. Let's name it the Twitch company. Historically, roughly how long will Frontier remain in test before it's pushed to live? It honestly kind of depends. We can't predict every issue that might crop up once there's, you know, hundreds of people trying it out. I don't imagine there'll be huge bugs because I think, knock on wood, we've taken care of all of those. But the playtest will basically last as long as it takes to make sure that once it goes fully live, it's a smooth experience. So anyone that wants to participate in the playtest, we appreciate you guys reporting bugs because it's going to be tremendously helpful for us to make sure that process is smooth. I imagine it'll be in the range of 2 to 3 weeks, but never know. The goal is definitely to get this update out to everybody this month. Safe to assume you have to trade for chickens, eggs foraged won't get them. Right, so to acquire all the new animals, you're going to have to use the trading post. So just like you got cows in the past, actually let's see what we got here. We got enders with goats, there you go. So we could actually just, let's buy a few more goats. Oh, did I just put them in storage, or did I... Oh no, did something just go wrong on stream? Come on. Yeah, something just bugged out there. So yeah, a bug to take a look at just before we wanted to push the playtest. What was supposed to happen is that these goats would end up right in here. Or maybe they already got transferred instantly, because I do have more goats than I remember. Programmers watching the stream, take a look at that, please. Haven't played since 0.9 and instantly get PTSD from the "oh no, something went wrong" sound. Oh, the notification sound. I have to say time and again, I always come back to this game as the best of its kind. I'm glad you think so. I definitely think we've carved out our niche in the town builder genre, and we'll continue to refine that. Thanks for the last supporter pack. When will the next drop? You're talking about the loyalist packs for Grim Dawn. Well, that was a pretty big commitment, actually. Like, the artist put in a lot of hard work to making those armors awesome. So I think it's going to be a while before we do another one, but maybe if you guys keep pressuring us on the forum like for the last one, we'll do it sooner rather than later. You know, it's part of this it's not part of this update, but they're expected to be a tier 5 by full release. So tier 5 housing, yes. If you're picturing a tier 5 town center, no. We're not going to add a new tier of buildings. So tier 4, like in terms of like what you can build, like that's going to be it for 1.0. Whether we go to tier 5, 6, whatever, post-release, that's a topic for a different day. You had a Pavlovian response when the trader bell rang. That makes sense. Is the cavalry in too? Well, let's take a look at this cavalry stable and see if we can answer that question. Hey, cavalry. Do we have cavalry? I like how one of them is off getting drunk, I think. Where did he go? I'm pretty sure I saw him riding through town instead of joining his buds in Rally Point. Another thing you might notice when I select one of these units is that there's a different selection circle around him. And the reason for that is, let me pause for a second here. If you look in the lower right of the HUD, there's these new controls you have for military units. First off, it's 4 new buttons for selecting units, so infantry, archers, cavalry, and then all military units. But if you have some selected, like I have this horseman here, I actually have additional stance options for him. So by changing his stance, it actually updates his little selection circle, and that lets you know which stance he's in. So defensive stance will actually have them pursue enemies less far than in the default stance. So if you don't want your units, chasing raiders out way into the wilderness, like you can switch their stance to something like this. Or if you don't, for example, this will be a good option for your archers. If you click the hold position, then they'll just stay put, and they'll only attack something if it comes within range. So for melee units, that means something you actually have to walk up to them. For archers, that means they're going to start shooting at anything they can reach. And finally, if you want a custom rally point, you can also set that for individual units. I'm over the HUD. I totally am. Let me move myself for a sec. Or just hide myself. You don't need to see me. Here we go. There. Yes, so take a look at this guy, and you can see there's new buttons. And there I'm back. Hello, you love the game. Fantastic so far. Are there any plans to add boats of some kind, like fishing boats, or a similar situation to the bridge situation? It's been discussed in the forum. Sorry for lost post. So it's kind of in the same boat, if you will. In terms of any water gameplay, we're thinking it makes more sense to do like a cohesive, committed like update specifically for that, and that's probably going to be in the form of a DLC because water gameplay is a pretty big addition. Like we're talking, like you said, you mentioned fishing boats. You could have trading ships showing up. You can have bridges, and all that stuff kind of adds up to some significant changes to the way the game handles things. So I think I've surely mentioned this in the thread you're referring to. Just to do bridges, for example, it's like there's so many questions that have to get asked and answered. Like when you build a bridge, which like are builders able to build it from both sides? Is there only one direction they can build from? Like what happens if you path them to the other side and the bridge gets destroyed? Can raiders path across bridges? Can villagers path across a bridge like when it's damaged? Like what if raiders destroy a bridge? What about a boat? Can it clip through a bridge? Does it get stopped by a bridge? So there's all these considerations, especially with pathing, that have to get resolved, and it gets complicated really quickly. And so rather than try to get all this really complicated stuff in for 1.0 when there's all the other features we wanted to get in, we felt it made more sense to do like a water update or a water DLC down the line. Bit like AoE 2 units, a little bit, yeah. Love the attention to detail, like the guard off on his downtime getting sloshed. It happened back then. It's especially funny when you see a horseman doing it. Any discussions of adding keeps, castles, forts? So that's kind of where our barracks come into play. I mean, if you really look at the tier 2 barracks, like it's kind of its own little fort as it is. You're very excited for the new raiders. You're curious to hear your thoughts on the terrain tool's defensive potential, and if that factors into the design of the new catapults or raider balance in general. So, as we've seen over the months of early access, you guys really like building thick walls. And so there had to be a response for the raiders to that, and that's where the catapults come in. In terms of the crazy like terraforming stuff you guys have done, I suppose catapults would help against that too, since they'll be able to bombard stuff from a distance. So all those fancy like complicated mazes of terrain you've been building, I guess won't be as effective. But I'm not sure it'll be fully negated by catapults. You gladly pay for the water-based DLC down the line. Take my money. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Hi, looks like I got to the wrong door. Grim Dawn stream a few months later. Yeah, this is not a Grim Dawn stream today, sorry. How much more optimization will you guys do the game performance before 1.0? Are you looking to do another dedicated optimization release before 1.0? I would say we're looking to do multiple optimization releases before 1.0. There's one, so we've mentioned on the forum and with our development updates that we hired a new programmer to kind of focus exclusively on optimization. He was actually pumped during the interview. Like we told him, like, oh, you could work on this, and he's just like, oh, that sounds awesome. Like, okay, great. So there he is, and he's been chipping away at that for the last couple months, and it's mainly been to the way animations are processed and rendered, which, as you can imagine, with a village of like 2,000 villagers, there's a lot going on there, and the way Unity handles animations this way is not the most efficient. But preliminary results are very promising. So I expect the next update will have optimization improvements, but it will not be the last optimization pass we'll be doing. But that one I think should be, hopefully, pretty big bump in terms of frame rates, especially for big towns. Are they also a bit tougher or cut them down with ease? Oh, in terms of raiders? Well, raiders aren't just getting catapults, they're also getting horsemen, so that will, you know, be another thing to contend with. But you get access to lancers, or sorry, pikemen. Lancers are the cavalry unit. Let's just select all these guys. Get out here. There we go. There's my pikemen. So these guys get a bonus against cavalry. What if we build normal walls? Will catapults wreck us? I don't think they'd be any more destructive to thinner walls than they would be to triple walls, mostly on account of the fact that they do splash damage. So if you've got triple walls, those walls are going to get like affected in the cluster, whereas if you have a single layer of wall, well, I mean, they're just going to be hitting the same chunk effectively. You imagine cavalry will be great for flanking incoming raiders. Yup, and for getting out there and picking off those pesky catapults. Another thing I'd like to point out is now that we have all these different military units, we've actually got them kind of forming formations, and that is to help you get the right units up front. Because as you can imagine, archers aren't as tough as your pikemen and heavy infantry, so rather than having them get wrecked by some raiders up front, they're actually going to get in line in the back. Get them holding stance. No, that was not going to work for this. Get in positions, guys. There they are. So you can see the archers are here in the back. Then we got our pikemen and heavy infantry mixed in the front. So those archers can start firing at the raiders coming at them, and these guys are going to hold them back. Do you need a rooster for the chickens to reproduce? We did not go that deep on the simulation, so it's just chickens. Love the game. One question I have is about accessibility. When the season changes to fall-winter, my screen darkens so much I have trouble seeing things. Any chance of making the environment brightness constant? Interesting. So you're saying it actually gets so dark that you can't see what's going on? We'll have to take a look at that, because that shouldn't be so dramatic. Like, it should get darker when, like, it's sort of, not really it simulates night, but it just kind of simulates shorter days, if you will. And then, like, the lights come on in the houses and stuff. So that's intentional, but it's surprising to me that it has such an impact you're having trouble seeing. But we'll have to take a look. Will the game have scenarios very close to Grim Dawn? It'd be fun cameo if it would have to manage Homestead Village from Grim Dawn or any other noticeable place. We don't have plans for scenarios right now. I don't know about post-release. I suppose if the community feels very strongly about having scenarios, it's something we could investigate for post-release content. How much more optimized is 9.2 would I say? There's nothing that I would say is significant in 9.9.2 in terms of performance. So this is not a performance targeting update. This was definitely a lot of like back-end technology that had to go into making all these new features for you. And so that's where the focus was. But in terms of optimization, as I mentioned, like the next update is going to have some pretty big improvements. Archers are squishy. Well, I found my cannon fodder then. There you go. Or even complete events from Grim Dawn, which wasn't in the game. I had to deal with them, like defensive prison location, the beginning of Ashes of Malmeth. Ah, I see. Yeah, so that kind of goes into the earlier conversation about scenarios. Like that's not something we have planned for 1.0. Looks awesome. When can we play? So this stuff that I'm showing you off right now is coming into playtest later today. As for when it's releasing fully to everybody, that's kind of going to depend on how long the playtest needs to go. I expect it'll be a couple weeks, and then everybody's going to be able to check it out. Let's get these guys back home. Was there any changes done with the barracks forced to have some sort of internal storage for ammo gear so the archers are not going out to fight with only 2 arrows in their quiver? So, in terms of archers stocking up, they're going to hold way more arrows than they used to. You can see they have 40. And I think we updated how often they restock themselves. So you shouldn't end up in a situation where archers are going into battle with 2 arrows. Did the chickens or the eggs come first? Well, actually, for that, we have a very straightforward answer. Because we had eggs for foragers, the eggs came first. So there you go. You hate to admit it, but you've been trying to enter the beta code for the past 30 minutes. Sorry. Not yet. A little longer. Will the game always be in endless mode, or will there be some kind of reason to grow your city eventually? It's always been intended to be a sandbox, so it's kind of up to you what your endpoint is. There might be some stuff down the line that is sort of like a pinnacle achievement, if you will, where it's just like, I've done it. This is like my peak, you know, commercial city. It's fine, you keep trying every now and last night, even though you already knew about today. So you're just hoping maybe it would come sooner. Any sandbox like tools, dev tools in the future. So in terms of tools, the game's made in Unity, so that's what you'd be using for any sort of modifications. We are also releasing our first pass on mod support with this update. So if you are interested in creating your own buildings, especially particularly decorative ones, like if you want to add all sorts of new options to make your town spiffy and cool, like in your own style, this will be the update you can start doing that officially. We made it as streamlined as possible, so you guys can just set up the assets you need, follow our guide that one of our artists wrote, and get your stuff uploaded to the Steam Workshop, then other people can start using it. Like, we want to make it as simple as possible for you to start modding the game the way you want. With the addition of extra military units, how does it impact the Ironforge supply chain? I wouldn't say it has any particular impact on that. I mean, if you're producing enough iron and gold to support your military now, you should be fine to do it in 0.9.2. Pretty downgraded and functional town. Exactly, someone's got it. Will we get our own catapults at some point? Who knows, that wasn't mentioned in patch notes, but I think I remember from an early post. We are not giving you siege units at this time. That would make defeating raider camps kind of trivial. Maybe someday, if there's going to be some sort of like larger raider or enemy fortification to deal with, that might make sense. But as it is now, it doesn't really make sense for your town to be making siege equipment because you're not sieging anything. So maybe in the future. Achievements to be added soon. Achievements will be added before the 1.0 or maybe even for the 1.0 update. What will most likely happen is we're gonna put 1.0 stuff into playtest and we'll enable achievements then. So anyone that enters that playtest, we will start earning achievements, and then 1.0 will have them officially. You keep trying to scroll around the town. Well, which part of my town do you want to see? This is, 600 population town. Decent mid-game town. What about YouTube streams? Some people need subtitles with translation. I don't know. I mean, I guess there's a way to stream to both Twitch and YouTube at the same time. We could look into that. But all these streams get uploaded to YouTube afterwards. So I think, does that end up getting the closed captioning that YouTube does? Because if that's the case, then that'll be our option. Will archers be able to place on walls or in towers? So we're not. I mean, as you can see, the walls aren't exactly thick enough for archers to climb on top of them. That's not something we had in mind when we came up with walls for the game. I don't know if we'll ever change that to have walls that you can climb on top of. But in terms of towers, it's still guards. And those guys will continue to use bows and crossbows. I think right now all the animals are probably hiding. Can I ask about the work progress on the new engine? Does it have a chance on update in the next few years? So, the work on the new engine is progressing smoothly. There's some really cool stuff happening in the background that we're not quite ready to talk about. But in terms of showing it to you, I think that's still definitely on the order of next few years, yeah. We are starting to ramp up on the sort of art and design end of the RTS development. So like, you asked about the new engine. The new engine will be used for our upcoming RTS game first, and then future games after that. So everything that's being done for right now does prioritize RTS features. And in terms of when we'll be able to show those to you, it'll probably be a bit still. We have a few RTS models, but not sure it makes sense to be showing those off yet. I wonder if there'll be changes to set cute things. Did we get surprised if any new gardens? We did not add new decorative buildings this update, but if there's any modders that are interested in making their own pretty gardens, this will be the update to start. Will lampposts be added? You know, I did mention lampposts as a decorative building. I'm not sure where that conversation ended up. But that could be another thing that modders could definitely do. Yes, there's an RTS game in the works. We at Crate love RTS games and we'd like to make our own. What's the new game engine? Well, it's the Crate engine. I'm not sure what else to call it. It's a proprietary engine that we're building from scratch. So it'll be our very own. It's not Unreal, it's not Unity, it's Crate. Come on, let it be spring so these animals will come back out. I haven't even looked at the chickens closely yet. You missed Command and Conquer RTS is great. Yeah, I really liked the Red Alert series back in the day. It wasn't like necessarily like a competitive multiplayer game, but the campaign was just stupid fun. Especially Red Alert 2. Almost spring. Recently you've been playing the Dune 2000 game from '97. Wow, that is old school. Are there any plans for different map locations to have seasons that are different, such as harsher winters or warmer summers? I would definitely like to see some of that done more. So what we've done so far is, for example, with droughts. Droughts happen way more often on arid environments, and blizzards happen way more often in the alpine environment. So we have a little bit of that now. I think more could be done with, like you said, like having seasons that are different lengths and intensities. Like having a very mild winter in arid, for example, would make sense. What setting is the RTS in? It is in the GD universe. Yes, it is set in the Grim Dawn universe. It is effectively, in terms of story, a prequel to Grim Dawn. What do chickens, goats eat, produce, and what affects their output? So, in terms of what they eat, we kept it pretty consistent. Like, all the same feed that you give cows, you can give to chickens and goats and horses. We didn't want to overcomplicate it. The only thing I'll mention is that now there is a new crop, where is that, which is hay. And there's a missing tag there we'll have to fix. But yeah, so you can effectively grow hay to feed your animals during the winter. Are the chickens out here now? There they are. What time will the playlist be live? Later today. Looks like we've got a couple small bugs to iron out that I found during this live stream, which should be quick, so it shouldn't delay the playtest too much. I expect so, like, probably by like 6 o'clock Eastern time today, I expect we'll have the playtest up for you. Any plans, ideas about how new animals to have multiple usage, like you mentioned in the forum that you plan to add horses, extra usage out of combat later on? Right, so currently in this update, horses are effectively just for combat. So you're breeding horses so you can recruit horsemen and lancers to defend your town. What would be really cool to do in the future is to come up with some more uses for horses around the town that aren't just military. One thing that we've been kind of floating around is maybe letting villagers borrow horses to just kind of get around faster for a bit. Like if they need to go somewhere far out of town, they could like take a horse and get there really fast. That's one idea we're floating around. Well, time to get and play Grim Dawn before the RTS comes out. There you go. You got to get your background. Any content? Are you content with the current terraforming tools? Sometimes they feel cumbersome, and other times I remind myself it may not have been Creed's intent to allow drastic changes to the land. So we definitely weren't planning for you guys to create crazy steep cliffs. but people are enjoying it, so it's kind of, well, have fun. In terms of making those tools more powerful, I'm not sure if we want to make them any more powerful than they are, because if it becomes too easy to do those crazy terraforms, it almost becomes as like the go-to strategy. Grow hey, quote unquote, all farmers have entered the chat. Glad I added the finger quotes. Yeah, I added the finger quotes for a reason. I know. I'm not gonna pretend you're growing hay. It is kind of a gameism. Like, I mean, technically you'd be growing nothing there, but you know, it has to be a resource for the game to manage it, for the farmers to harvest it and, you know, deposit it in the barns. How does a new wagon system work in terms of logistics, like bringing, let's say, meat from faraway outposts from your town center for smoking? So, in the last update, we added storage limits. Let's take a look at those really quick for anyone that might not have played recently. Let's see. There. So if you want to set quotas for a minimum maximum you want of a resource in a storage building, you can set that here. So if you want, for example, only like 10 nuts to be in this warehouse, you can set that, and then any excess would go to other storage buildings. And then on another building, you could set a minimum of, you know, 100 nuts, and then villagers are going to basically like take nuts from this storage building and put them over in that one. And so if you want resources to kind of flow in a particular direction and make sure that certain resources are always available in particular buildings, that's what you can do. And what this update brings to the table is the ability for wagons to assist in that process. So in version 0.9.1, villagers were doing all of that work, which is fine if you have a lot of laborers, but if there's any heavy materials you want to transport around, like iron or sand or something, then villagers actually take a really long time to do that. And it's kind of funny to watch, because you get like 20 villagers going like back and forth between buildings, carrying like 2 stone at a time. But wagons can help make that a lot more efficient, and that's what this update brings for that. Do chickens provide meat? Yes. If you want to open a KFC in your town, this is the time. Oh, now that I've got this open, actually, that brings me to another feature in this update, which is the request resource. So if, say, I really, really need shields, I can request them, and then we're going to have to pay attention to the next trader who shows up. So that once you request a resource, the next trader that wasn't already on the way will deliver that item to you at a premium. So if you really, really need shields, you can select that option. A trader's going to bring it. They're going to cost a little extra compared to what they would normally cost, but it's going to fill up that need for you. So for example, if you really need clay or something, or really need to get soap or herbs in your town, that's going to let you do that in an emergency. Do goats and chicken coops have give negative desirability? I believe they do, yes. Just like barns. Another good use for horses could be an addition in farming to boost productivity. That's also something that like we thought about in terms of like a use for horses. Like it would be pretty cool to have like a horse-drawn, you know, farm tool. But it would require some pretty fundamental changes to the way farming was implemented. So maybe in the future, but definitely not right now. How dare our video game is something slightly unrealistic? Yeah, what were we thinking? You're playing a game? What's next? You're gonna tell me that peasants don't live in mansions? There's probably totally some dude here that's like the night soilsman, and he's totally living in like a manor in my town. Does lightning do damage to people or buildings? I don't think it does damage to people, but it can set buildings on fire. Can wagons carry anything? How's it worked out when they will move things between storages? Yeah, I think in terms of transferring stuff between storages, they can carry pretty much anything, just in larger quantities. When possibly will we get bridges? So this question got asked earlier in the stream, and the answer is post-release. We hear you guys want bridges, you hear you guys want water gameplay, so that is definitely something that's on our radar, but it's just too big of a feature set to get in for 1.0 unless we stay in early access forever, which some people are content with. But some people already feel that early access has been too long, so you know you got to balance both acts. How in-depth will modding be? We'll be able to create our own resources and mechanics and more ore types of crops, food, etc. So the initial official support for modding is for sharing maps and for sharing decorative buildings. We do want to keep expanding that to give you more and more options in terms of what you can officially mod. In terms of what you can do unofficially, I mean, people have been doing all sorts of stuff already. For those, though, I think you will need to continue using things like Melon Loader, because that's effectively, I think, injecting code into the game. So that's still going to be possible. We're not removing the ability to do that, but we just want to make it easier to do without resorting to such tools. My rat problem is triggering OCD. Well, it's not a rat problem, it's so much that my rat catcher is being a slacker. Yeah, this one here. Oh yeah, she's on it. She's taking care of it. What's the building in the graveyard at the top? So, last update, we added crypts. So you're not filling up your whole map with graveyards. So crypts can hold 2,000, whereas a graveyard like this holds 188. Let's throw airplay in there too. Give us blimps. I think we're gonna cut it at that level of technology. That they haven't quite invented hydrogen yet. Can we manipulate the population to increase more with this update? There is a bump to population growth kind of in the mid-game, so right around like the population of this town. Like we felt that as this population growth kind of got bigger and bigger, there was a certain point in mid-game where it kind of slowed down way too much, and it didn't feel great. Like there was a point in this town actually when I was playtesting in the last few months where I was like, my town is kind of stagnating. Part of that was that some of the raids with horsemen and stuff just got a bit tougher and I had to adjust. But I was just losing almost as many villagers as were getting born and immigrating, which meant my town was just kind of sitting there. So we did bump population growth in this range a bit. Will soldiers use the barracks as a home instead of using a house? So any profession that has a secondary residence, so hunters, foragers, fishermen, and soldiers, they all live in their work residence. But for the purposes of advancing your town and upgrading your houses and stuff, they do also have a primary residence that they effectively occupy. So they do actually live in the barracks. They just also have a home assigned to them for the purposes of, you know, balance and stuff. We need a mini-map, please. A mini-map is on our radar. I'm not sure which update it'll be in, maybe post-release, but we do hear that you guys want a mini-map. We're definitely considering the option. Oh, and see, this guy is flashing. A traveling merchant is at the trading post ready to trade shields, at your request. And he's over here, brought me shields, brought me a lot of shields, and they're pretty pricey. But since I requested shields, I can buy them. Hey Zenta, will you like to add a system where the population will have their leisure free time if they're not working and are being idle if they're laborers? I made a suggestion in the forum if you want to check it out. Not ready to talk about that yet, but yes. Let's just say soon. We'll show off what we have in mind for that. We do want to make the town feel a little bit more alive, and villager idle time is exactly where that would come into play. Would it be too much of a hassle to implement lifespan on graves so a plot can get reused after X years? I'm guessing it would be difficult since the crypts were introduced. I mean, we could do that. I'm not sure how I feel about it. What would be really cool is if you could have some sort of like summary of all the villagers that died and how. But yes, crypts were kind of the answer to that question. Do we plan to have some sort of multiplayer like Anno? We are not planning to add multiplayer for Frontier. This has been and always will be intended to be a single player experience. Message: fractured bone in mine. Very strange. But you've never heard of someone breaking a bone while working in a mine? that shouldn't be too bothered by being stacked up. You guys are way too efficiency focused. What happens to respect for the dead? Did I fix the gold leech issue? You're gonna have to be more specific. What gold leech issue are you talking about? What about composting bodies? Come on. Good idea for a mod. Some history keeper, records of all peoples. Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be really cool to have that as an official feature, but I'm not sure when we'd get around to that. Could you maybe dig up graves if you've run out of food and things are getting dire? I don't think I want to do that simulation. We can respect the dead after we've become efficient. There you go. Another feature of this update, not related to any dead body disposal, is disposing of resources. So if you have too much of an item you don't want, for example, let's say you've got too much tallow or something in town, you will now have the option of disposing of it. This UI is still getting tweaked a little bit before the release, because this is an older build that we set up for the stream, but the general idea is still there. What you're going to be able to do here is you're going to be able to set a number and throw away some, amount of resource. So if you've got those crude weapons lying around from the early game that you just don't have any use for anymore, you'll be able to get rid of them. Any news on a possible Forger's upgrade rework to make them more reliable? I think you're going to have to elaborate on what reliable means there. Has the detriment of beer been altered at all? It has not. I think I know what you mean by detriment, but no, it has not been changed. Before building Vault, gold vanishes in spite of balanced budget. I'm not aware of there being a leak in gold quantities. If maybe what might be happening in your town is that some gold is being transferred to trading post, but I've never seen an example that's been reported or confirmed or reproduced that shows that gold just vanishes on its own, or vanishes in a way that doesn't reflect this. Frostpunk crossover. I don't even know what that would look like. Just winter all the time. And like, would it even work as a crossover? Because like Frontier is so far back in the timeline, like it doesn't really match up to their technology in Frostpunk. Because I mean, they had to make those reactors to keep themselves alive, and I don't think that technology exists in Frontier. You just add a Frostpunk Frostpunk heat generator, except there's no electricity in the game. What's that hourglass button in the bottom left of the UI? Glad you asked. Another feature of this update. If you want the game to slow down from 3x or 2x speed or whatever automatically for you when there's an attack, you can toggle these options here. So when these are on and there's a raider attack coming, if I'm playing on 3x speed, it'll automatically slow down to 1x for you. That way you have more time to respond. And I haven't had a raider attack during the stream yet, but there's actually a pretty big update to how raider notifications work. So maybe a raid will show up before the stream is over, but now not only does notifications show up a lot sooner, but you'll have a big arrow indicator pointing you to where the raid is coming from. So no more guessing, like, oh my god, there's a raid, like, where are they, where do I send my troops? Like, you will actually have a general idea, like, okay, they're coming from the northwest, I can send my soldiers to that wall and be ready for them. Will we ever add sheep to the game to produce meat, milk, wool, could produce new types of clothing? I think sheep would be really cool. It's a little out of scope to get to 1.0 at this point, but I think a whole, like, wool industry would be a perfect addition to Frontier in the future. The design of the graphs and how they're divided and grouped, is that planned to stay this way, or will they get an overhaul before 1.0? Are you talking about the annual report? We didn't think there was anything there that needed a change. I guess if you have some strong thoughts, you can post them on the forum and we'll take a look. I mean, I'm not sure what you're necessarily missing in terms of features there. Crank the game up to 2x and get a rate faster. Yeah, I suppose I could. What does the game look like by 1.0? Well, it's going to have more features. It's going to run better. And it's going to have more quality of life stuff. And achievements. And more modding. Lots of things. New to the streams. When release of 1.0? You're just waiting and waiting. I can't give you an exact date yet. I imagine we'll be announcing it in the future. But we're aiming for 1.0 this year. So, Farthest Frontier 1.0 2024. Which month 2024? We have one in mind, but not ready to tell you. You may have missed it earlier, just to clarify that players get cavalry in the update, or just raiders get cavalry, and we get anti-cavalry. And if so, is it its own unit, or is there a mount-dismount option? So, cavalry are their own unit, and there's no dismount option, it's just a cavalry unit. Get in line, guys. There you go. We've got lancers, and we got horsemen. So, horsemen move quite a bit faster. Lancers are a bit more heavy, higher damage. I see. So what you want for your stats and graphs is the ability to go like way back in time. That would require some significant UI changes. Because like if we're talking about going back like 500 years, I mean what year is this town? 159. So like 160 years of data. I think that stuff is all stored. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head, but just to display it all, it would require like you'd have to be able to set like ranges. You'd have to be able to set, you know, like min max for like show this time period only, because otherwise it would just be unmanageable to see that much data at once. Portuguese translation needs improvements. Some things don't make any sense. Unfortunately, I don't speak Portuguese myself, so I can't really vouch for any particular localization. If you have feedback regarding an issue of localization, like any language, like if you feel like something was mistranslated, or maybe there's an error, or a typo, or a grammatical error, please report that as a bug. We can forward that to our localization team and make sure it gets fixed. Because while I'd love to speak every language in the world, that's simply not going to happen. So I can't take a look at Portuguese or German or you know, many of those other languages and be like, oh, that's a problem. We need to change that. So we're kind of counting on the translators and you guys to be like, oh, that's good. That's how it should be. Are there new hotkeys for troops? So that you can call all the barracks at once, or do you still have to go to each one? So I mentioned this earlier in the stream, so there's these new buttons in the lower right that are hiding behind me. I'll hide myself again. So in the lower right of the stream here, we have select infantry, select archers, select cavalry, select all military. So if I click this, select all military units, I can tell every single military unit in my town to get in position. And that's what those guys are going to do. And then, once you select some military units, you get additional stance options. So I could, for example, tell all these guys to stop, and they're all going to stop. Also, in terms of military, we have unit groups. So I just clicked 1, which selected just these guys, because earlier in the game, I selected these guys, I set them, you know, control 1, I set them to group 1. I can select a smaller amount of them, and I'll only select, you know, and bind that to group 2, and that's group 2 now. So control number 1 through 9, or 1 through 0, and then pressing those numbers will restore whatever control group you've set. It's basically like pretty standard RTS settings. And because we went all the way from 1 to 0 for that, we decided to actually, why the heck not? We're going to give you all these additional camera bindings too. So now you can save 10 different camera positions around the map and jump to them instantly. Any plans to add more gold sinks into the game? Your vaults are always full. Well, clearly game's too easy. I don't know in terms of what the future will hold for stuff costing gold, so we'll see about that. But the addition of the new soldier options does give you more ways to spend gold for sure. Like horsemen are very powerful, but also more expensive. Can you update your existing town to 0.9.2 or do you have to start a new town? So in terms of new features, pretty much everything that's added in 0.9.2 is compatible with existing towns. What you will be missing out on is raider camps that spawn with horsemen. Since those get populated when the game is started, those will not be in your save. But everything else, you can pretty much just keep playing your existing town. So this update does not require you to start over if you don't want to. Will soldiers be more aggressive, independent, once in range of raiders, and will cavalry be able to run down and take care of the retreating bandits? So, I mentioned those additional controls in the lower right when you select units, like you have offensive stance, defensive stance, rally stance, and hold position. Like those give you a lot more control about what you want your soldiers doing. So yeah, an aggressive stance will have them pursuing raiders a lot longer. A defensive stance will have them actually pull back a lot sooner and then, you know, seek out new targets nearby instead. You need to wait some more, then you just don't want to start a new game before release of 1.0 because there's so much more that's coming. Yeah, I mean, if you want to have like the complete 1.0 experience when you start your next town, unfortunately you are gonna have to wait because there's still some pretty cool new features coming. Are there any new defensive buildings coming, different types of towers, etc.? I don't think there's any currently planned, no. Not for 1.0 anyway. Thank you for making a game like this. It's been a blast. I always come back to it when I need something. I know I'm gonna turn. When I need something, I know I'm gonna turn brain off and enjoy building. There you go. It was like my tongue. Yeah, if this is your go-to game to kind of play like relaxed and enjoy it, yeah, perfect. I mean, you can even turn off, you know, raiders completely and then have a very peaceful experience. Are there group icons anywhere control 0 to 9 on units? Oh, like in terms of what unit's bound to what? Not currently? Is that something you think is necessary? When will you be able to use the beta code? So when we start the playtest later today, you'll be able to enter that beta code and opt in to the beta branch. You'd love to be able to immortalize a villager. The only survivor of a raider attack is now Aldrich the Great, and you can get a statue named after him. That'd be pretty fun. Not sure that's something we'd get in for 1.0 though. Can you control which type of unit go into which barracks? So you can transfer soldiers just like always. You also have a lot more fine control about which soldiers you want to get rid of. So if, for example, I want to get rid of these archers here, I can just get rid of them specifically. Or like if I really don't like Lingon here as a pikeman, I can be like, get out. Grimdawn expansion in 2024. So Grimdawn expansion is slated for the end of 2024, start of 2025. Which one of those will kind of be based on, you know, how development goes and how many features we end up adding that we didn't plan to add, because we always do that. Will we ever get stronger walls? If not, any plans to have double, triple walls look different, prettier. I don't think we're planning any more powerful walls at this time. An earlier formation had archers in the back, pikemen up front. Was that a natural formation or created? So that's just the default unit behavior. We're not gonna get into like total war, custom like formation stuff here. Like at the end of the day, this is not an RTS, so we didn't want to get too crazy. So like it's just like a default, you know, ideal set layout where like the, you know, heavy infantry go up front and the archers go in the back. You need raiders in your world. You like to send an army on 20 dudes. What's the highest on the list for the devs want to add? The highest thing on our list that we want to add is actually it's a very feature that we're very excited to add in the game later this year. Why aren't deer eating through my crops? Well, because I've got all my crops fenced in. I'm pretty meticulous about that. Can you share more yet on what the redacted building was in the developer log forum post? Well, the redacted building that was in that forum post is actually related to the feature that we're really excited to get into your hands. Oh, there's the raider attack coming. Looks like for 3 directions. And there you go. Like when I get off, let me pause actually for a bit here. So when I get off screen, I can't see them. The arrows appear. When I get them on screen, I get them over here. So let's get my troops in position. Get these guys over here. And I bet most of the raid will actually come from this direction. So we'll get these guys here. And I just fired a bunch of soldiers to show you that we could do that, which is unfortunate timing, but oh well, I'm sure it'll be fine. Will also be an update on storages, like moving materials between them. So that's already a thing as of the last update. So if you're, that's what we're talking about there is storage limits. So that's what I brought up earlier about setting a limit to how much you can throw away. And there they are. Let's get that flag over there. There's battering rams, or the catapults. There's catapults. Regardless of the walls, could we have a different model when we double them up so it looks like one thicker wall instead? No, I don't think we'll do that for 1.0. Let's get those horsemen in there too. Actually, they're already in there. Look at them. They're like, we're on this. I assume those guys got taken care of. Let's get these guys moving in too. Looking at my village count, since you started, it's very stagnant, actually decreasing. It's gone from 670 to now 62 in an hour. Where I'm playing at 1x speed for one, so it's only been like, and I've been pausing a lot too. So it's been what, like 5 months since we started the stream. Any chance of being able to sell flags at the trading post? Anything that's not currently sellable at the trading post will continue to not be sellable at the trading post. There are certain resources that are very easy to generate in huge quantities, and the traders are just not interested in buying them. Yeah, get out of here, raiders. Oh, speaking of these rally flags, so I want all these guys to go back to barracks. I'm just gonna, oh, I clicked the wrong button, but yeah, clear all flags if you want to just get all your guys heading back to their barracks at the same time. You don't have to go and find every single flag you've placed. And on that note, if I have a rally point flag set, you have a new button here that jumps to target and will help you find where you've left that pesky rally point. Similarly, for work camps, let's see. So let me move this circle way over here. And if you click that button, it jumps to where your work area is. So if you've forgotten where you set it to, you can now use that to jump straight to that spot. The cavalry building sound effect seems 2 times as loud as the other effect, is it? I guess it is a little loud. Yeah, we can turn it down a little bit. There's battering rams too. Have you not noticed the battering rams already? Instead of just thicker walls, have devs consider defensive obstacles that more variety of defensive buildings. I think the anti-cap stakes, or like those elaborate traps you see on castles and stuff. That all sounds cool. It's a lot of scope for 1.0. If people post-release really want to develop more of the like military stuff, then that's something we can definitely look into in the future. A horse with no rider joining in. Yeah, I think that was actually a rider that got killed, and the horse left. The catapult does not do damage. The catapult is definitely doing damage. The walls are getting fixed now. Can we restart an existing town we've been building and have to update it, or use the same seed? Those are both options. Will we add sheep to the game? Now we can add groups, our hunters in number groups to kill early raiders. I don't think you can group raiders in unit groups, or sorry, hunters in unit groups. I think those meant specifically for military units. In terms of sheep, I did answer the question just a little bit earlier in the stream. Like, sheep would be really cool. I think it would really make sense for sheep, though, to come with support for whole wool industries. Like, you need, you know, a way to treat the wool, like prepare it for making clothes, and then you of course need wool and clothes. So like that's a whole stack of new features that would need to be added all together. I think sheep would be a really cool addition in the future, though. You can already see yourself making a horseman hit party from those catapults. Yeah, that would be the idea. Sorry, silly question. You haven't used Twitch much, but is the stream over? I hope not, because I'm still talking. What is the siege max splash damage range? I think it's like 3 units-ish, 2 or 3 units, and non-buildings do take less damage from siege. When we first implemented catapults, I had this instance where they fired at a gate that my infantry were standing by, and they all got wiped out. So there is a damage reduction for military units versus siege. Any plans for firearms? Not at this time. I'm not sure if we'd ever advance the game to the gunpowder era, but at this time it stops at crossbows and archers. Any plans to add new trees for the arbors? Oh, like new fruit trees? I don't know. Maybe in the future. Like, there's still the possibility of adding new crops and new fruits and many things like that in the future. It's sort of like, what are people looking for? And once we're at 1.0, that doesn't mean like, oh, well, game's done, guys. Sorry, no more additions. Like, that's gonna be the time when we're gonna start asking questions like, well, what would make this game even better for you? What sort of features would you want to see in Frontier? And those are the conversations we'll be having post-release, and those are the kind of things we'll be looking to update the game with. So if people are really interested in more fruit trees, that seems very reasonable. You sent your 19 pages of suggestions. You had some questions back then that I'm happy that you asked now. Just to be clear, in terms of sending suggestions in, we appreciate all feedback, and we do look at all of it. I will say, though, that getting a 19-page report is going to be really hard for us to process, when most of the time we're looking at feedback, it's going to be in the middle of a workday where we're like, okay, I just committing this. While it's checking in, let's take a look at the forum. Okay, I spent 10 seconds looking at this post. If I can get the gist of it in that time, that's going to be a lot more helpful than having 19 pages of feedback to parse through, because eventually I will, but it's going to take a while, and it might involve some skimming, to be honest. Just to be brutally honest in terms of like posting a huge feedback like that. Like, be concise and to the point. It's going to get your point across much better. In terms of getting a response to your feedback, I do apologize that we're not able to respond to everybody. Like, there's so many of you and only so many of us, and honestly, a lot of the programmers are afraid of you. So a lot of time it's just me responding. So then it's just me responding to all of you. So keep poor me in mind. Make short posts. So to get to your questions, though, when will we see a map editor feature? So you're talking about like making like a custom map. The game wasn't built with that in mind. It's purely like map generation with seeds. So I'm not sure that's ever going to change. Will there be a more detailed map customization before starting a game? You're talking about like rule sets and stuff, like affecting what spawns on the map and stuff. That's possible. I can't say right now whether that's going to make it in for 1.0 or not. Any plans for multiplayer? Answer earlier question, no. Farthest Frontier will remain a single-player game. A campaign with a storyline would somehow slide away from the current idea of the game, but do you plan to implement separate nation clans or other specialized features that would allow a proper campaign to be created? We do not have plans to create a campaign at this time. The game was always intended to be a sandbox experience. If post-release there's a lot of requests for some sort of scenario gameplay, we can look into it, but not for 1.0. Olive trees would be nice to make oil and such. Yeah, that'd be another option for a fruit building. Re-wagoneer behavior. Drive back versus running. Raiders take wagon if left. So the raiders aren't here to steal your wagons, but they will kill the drivers if they can. Will raiders ever pillage areas outside the defense range and then leave? Raiders have targets they prefer. So once they get into your town, they're definitely gonna, it's like certain, and actually certain raiders have different preferences too. So like there's raiders that are called thieves, and those guys are pretty much gonna gun it for your storage buildings, and they're gonna try to grab as much stuff as they can and get out. And then there's raiders that are pretty much focused entirely on just wrecking stuff. So if you don't take care of those guys, those are gonna be the guys that are just gonna wipe your town clean if you let them. And then there's something in between. Patch notes mention your troops gain veterancy based on combat experience. How does that work, and how would it interact with not keeping a standing army? Well, so you can see my guys here have now made some progress towards veterancy here, which means that a bunch of these guys have gotten some combat experience, probably from killing raiders. And in terms of your other question about not keeping a standing army, if you remove your soldiers, their veterancy gets erased. So that is a benefit of keeping a standing army. You'd like to be able to play until 2155 and then build a rocket to conquer space? Maybe in 0.9.3, easily, no problem. Maybe 0.4, let's be realistic. Any plans to add a crime police system? That's actually something we've talked about as a mechanic. It's not going to be a 1.0 feature, but that would be a cool thing to do. Like, to have, like, you know, like a way to punish those soldiers that go on a rampage after getting drunk. I think that'd be a nice bit of depth, but it would be more of a post-release thing. Role sets, deeper settings, starting assets, etc. would be amazing. Yeah, I think more controls over how you start your game would be pretty cool. Raiders hate your fences. I think they hate my fences too. Let me see. Oh no, that's a gate. They've definitely destroyed some fence somewhere. Yeah, there it is. How do you opt into this update? So after this stream, probably by 6 o'clock Eastern time, we're going to get the playtest up for you, and then you guys will be able to opt in on the forum. If you don't have a forum account, you can't see that section of the forum. So anyone that might be clicking that link and can't see it is because you need a forum account to do so. The reason for that is that we want to consolidate playtest feedback in one place. We're not gathering your data. Like this forum, the only thing this forum asks for is an email address and a username, obviously a password for your account, but like we don't store anything besides that. Like we're not asking for your birth date or where you live or anything like that. We don't want to know, we don't care. So don't give it to us. It's purely so we can have all your playtest feedback in one spot, so we can keep it consolidated, so people aren't reporting issues in different places unaware that it's been fixed. So but you can opt into the playtest just by having the code, the beta code. So that code's been floating around on the internet for a while now. That's fine too. If you don't want to participate in the forum, that's an option for you. Veterancy dynamic, very cool. Also written in dev notes, assigned to companies and can move between barracks. Can you demo that? Let's see. Yeah, I think I can transfer some dudes. So we're gonna move these guys over here. And we're gonna move my one archer. So you see that archer is now gone from Bro Company, and he's off to the Twitch Company. We've got some great company names over here, apparently. Can you just sign in the forums through Google? I think you can register an account using a Google account. But you can't sign in with a Google account. Like, we're not affiliated with Google. Any plans for repair all button instead of highlighting the fences or clicking through broken buildings? That might make sense. That would be a good quality of life feature, yeah. Are more endgame calamities planned besides plagues and raiders, like more fantasy inspired? We're definitely keeping the game relatively like low fantasy here. Like the relics for religion are already kind of fantasy-ish. But there is, you know, a lot of real-world background into how these relics were believed to work. So it's sort of like a faith aspect of them. Like, oh, people are motivated to do this because this exists in their town. So it's a little bit more grounded than, like, I don't know, fighting off a dragon or something. Yeah, someone just pasted the beta code over here. So anyone that doesn't want to register on our forum, you can opt into the playtest with that, but you won't know when it's live because it's gonna be posted on the forum. Any plans for higher tiers? So we are planning a higher tier of housing. You'll be able to get tier 5 houses, sort of like the pinnacle building. In terms of a tier 5 town center, that's not in scope for 1.0. Like tier 4 is where we're stopping in terms of like building tech. Let's go back to those animals for a bit. Is there going to be any type of prison mechanic where you capture hurt raiders? And what are you going to do with those raiders exactly? What awful things do you plan to do with them? What did they ever do to you? Dragon farms? Maybe when we do Fanciest Frontier. Fresh meat. Fresh meat from raiders. I sense a theme in this chat regarding corpses and raiders that makes me a little concerned for you guys. Not judging, just concerned. Do we prefer bug reporting on the forum or Discord, which has a horrible format? So the Discord is not official, so definitely on the forum. While we do occasionally hop into that Discord just to hang out and chat for a bit, I've done that pretty recently myself. We're not going to be checking in there for bug reports, so definitely if you have a bug and you want to get in front of us, please report on the forum. Even Steam forum or the official one. Either one works. They'll get the top men on it. Do we have goats in 9.2? Yep, there they are. Going back inside. Is Farthest Frontier in the same universe as Grim Dawn, but only some 200 years before the Grim Dawn? No, so they are not the same world. You can pretend it is. Grim Dawn before the Grim Dawn, when everything was great. All you had to worry about is the Black Death and raiders. Last night you lost 40 villagers to a raid, so no mercy. That's fair. Just don't eat them. What areas are likely to be added to support modding in near future patches? So we definitely want to get you guys making all sorts of buildings. So decorations are the first step. I think getting you guys creating production buildings would be the next logical step to take. But in the end, like the more support we can get officially, the more of you will probably be interested in doing it. So we definitely want to provide you with as easy to use tools as possible. There was a previous mention of a tier 2 bakery. Is that still in the works? It is still in the works. It is not in this update, however. Please stream more. Great game. I think more streams would make sense, just from time to time. It kind of depends on, you know, like when we're playing a release and like what we have time for. We have a lot of things going on here at Crit Entertainment, so it's not like I'm just sitting around being like, I should stream today. It's more like, oh god, I need to make time for a stream. Did we fix the issue of herders not stocking their barns with fodder? I believe we did. Definitely let us know if it still happens in 0.9.2, but I believe the issues that people have been experiencing with barns not stocking and with lumber mills and sawmills not emptying, I think those should all be resolved in this update. But if they haven't been, please let us know. Do we get goats and chickens before cattle? That's up to you. They're available around the same time in terms of progression. When will we build round walls? Probably never. We'll see. Grim Midnight comes before Grim Dawn, I'd assume, yes. Or maybe like Grim Twilight. It'd be cool to use goats to super clear brushing for building. I guess that'd be kind of funny, like a goat mowing service. Did books get a rework? I can never make enough. I don't think books got a significant rebalance, no. I mean, in my town, I don't currently have books in stock, but I think I'd probably just need to get more bookbinders working. I only have 4 working right now. So it's not even that I don't have enough stuff to make books. I just need more dudes making them. Upgrading Tavern to maybe an inn to be able to accommodate more traders and make them stay longer. Interesting idea. Not sure Tavern would be the way to do that. Maybe an inn would just be its own building. But maybe someday. Now, is there anything that I forgot to mention for this update? We mentioned modding, mentioned the throwing away resources, mentioned wagons for transferring resources. We've got horsemen, we're not horsing around, stables, goats, chickens, soldier management, raid warnings, horsemen showing up. You might have seen some of those during the battle. We mentioned some of our bug fixes, changes to population growth, the speed controls. There's a lot of stuff in this update. It's pretty chock full of quality of life stuff. So like if there's some things that you've been like, oh man, I wish they'd change that, or wish they'd add this to like make the game more convenient, like this might be the update for you. There was a fix for graveyard construction, which probably not as exciting for you guys since it just changes how much they cost to build. If you recall previously, they cost 5 stone no matter how big they were. That cost now scales with graveyard size. Which is just a little bit more logical. It didn't make much sense that it cost 5 stone no matter what. Will there be a way to deal with drunk soldiers that go on a murder spree? Well, the easiest way to deal with that is to send to raider camp. You know, re-education camp, but a raider camp. New issue, nerf graveyard cost. Already? Yes, I think we covered the big features here. Yeah, this trading request, we've done that. Thank you for updating and making an excellent game. I'm glad you think it's an excellent game. I hope we can continue to make it better for you guys. And we thank all of you that have been participating in the playtests and in early access in general. Like, your feedback is shaping the game and it's helping us iron out bugs that we might not have found ourselves. Like, it's easy to say like, oh well, developers released the game of all these bugs in it, like how is this not fixed? Like sometimes honestly, like things just don't pop up until you have hundreds of people thrown at the game. So it's hard to predict every issue. And I can assure you that virtually any developer on the planet does not want to ship their game with bugs. Prohibition, just don't make beer. Yeah, that's an option. Do goats make milk? Yes, they do. Thanks for streaming and answering questions. I think this pikeman here just got drunk. It's okay, he didn't stab anyone on the way down. So I am going to be hopping off the stream here to get back to work and make sure to get that playtest out to you guys later today. Do you guys have any last minute burning questions that you want to ask before I hop off? Were Def your favorite developers you've interacted with in an early access title? I'm glad you think so. Frankly, for us, early access has been an excellent experience. Grim Dawn exists in the state that it does, thanks to early access. So we definitely take it very seriously. I know that not every developer necessarily does, and there's some games that have just been early access, you know, perpetually, which for some of them that's not a bad thing. Like they're just getting updated and updated and updated, and some people are cool with that. And then there's, you know, the ones that just get kind of quietly abandoned and no one ever talks about again. But that's not how we're using this system. Like early access to us is primarily a way to get interacting with you guys, hearing your feedback, and changing the game when it's still the easiest to change it. Because like once a game gets released, it gets to a certain point where like, well, we can't change this fundamental thing. Like people are playing with this. Like if we change it now, someone's going to be upset, or it's going to break the game completely. Like those are things that are kind of like, you know, nailed down and not changing anymore. But when it's in early access, especially, you know, way back at the beginning of early access, we could be like, well, we got this feature, but people think it should do more of this. Like, well, that's the time to do it. And that's how we've used early access for Frontier. And I hope you guys agree. I think it's gone excellent so far. Extend your thanks to all the devs in the team. Absolutely. Hear that, devs watching the stream? They thank you for your work, and they should. These guys, the guys on the Frontier team are doing great work, and they're working really hard to get 1.0 ready for you. Like I said, there's still a lot of really cool stuff in the works that they're implementing, and I can't wait to show it to you next time. Where can I go to get into the playtest? So later today the playtest will begin. Right now you can't actually opt into it yet. Make some behind the scenes video, maybe like you did for Grim Dawn, to see some artists working. Oh, interesting. I'm not sure if I can convince Sandcaster to do that. I'll have to ask him. So Sandcaster is one of our artists. He is the principal artist on Frontier. So I think almost all of these buildings, if not all of them, have been through his machinations. If I can convince him to share with you the work in progress, maybe. Great updates yet again. Glad you think so. I think this is an awesome update, especially for people that are more inclined towards the combat end of Frontier. There's a lot of great new features for you. And if you're not into combat, there's still chickens, there's ghosts, there's all this quality of life stuff, resource requesting. I mean, there's a lot of stuff even if you're not into combat. So even though we're calling this the combat update, don't think that it's just for people that are into combat. Thank you for being transparent and responsive to the community. No problem. I don't think we have anything to hide, so I'm happy to answer your questions. Did arrows get reworked? Not to my knowledge. You'd have to clarify what you mean by arrows getting reworked. Fire drill for a crate team starts around 6. Well, I hope it's not going to be a fire drill. I hope it's going to be a very smooth transition to playtest. Updated roadmap. Well, we have our own roadmap. I'm not going to tell you what's on it. But be hyped. It'll be good stuff. Do grazing areas overlap? They can. However, there will be a penalty to the grazing quality if you're overgrazing an area like that. So if you like stacked up 6 barns in one square, the grazing quality is going to go down a lot. Alright guys, thank you so much for stopping by the stream. I hope all this stuff has you excited, and I hope you enjoy all this stuff in playtest later today if you're planning to opt in. So I'm going to be hopping off here to get back to work, and you guys will be hopping into the playtest later today, I'm sure. So enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy Frontier, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye.